Welcome to another episode of Jerrod's Jaunt. My name is Mike, I'm your voice in the ether. After our last episode, we left Jerrod snoozing in a burnt out prison after encountering a zombie. Having left Glenwood, quick recap, he left Glenwood, he was making his way to the Brotherhood of the Zephyr when he got caught in a snowstorm. That snowstorm effectively caused a whiteout and he needed to seek shelter. So he made his way to a burnt-out prison that he would have known about, and when he got there, he discovered a zombie in the old prison courtyard. Obviously, he needed shelter and he needed to take that zombie out, which is what he did with great frenzy. He chopped him up into little zombie cubes, and left him there, maybe with the odd finger still, crawling around. But that's by the by. But anyway, he needed shelter. He needed someone to hold up. So he thought, he stay there for the night, set up camp, and see how things develop in the morning. I did leave a poll for you guys to engage with, should you felt inclined to do, and I gave 3 options. Those options were, one was to investigate the prison further. The prison itself, even though it's a good few miles out of town, it's still a little bit too close to civilization. And Jerrod, being a guy who is effectively a protectorate of the region, he couldn't be leaving zombies crawling around close to Glenwood. His other option was to hail a passerby on the road, and for that passerby to get word to Reeve Godric in Glenwood, who then could come out and with a posse and sort it himself. Or the other option was that he's got bigger fish to fry. He's taken out this one zombie. He hasn't got time to play around. Just get out of Dodge and make his way to the Brotherhood of the Zephyr. The poll result was that he should stay to investigate, which is quite frankly right, because should he have left, it would have gone against his nature, I believe. So Jerrod, he's going to stick around and investigate this prison, which would, in all intents and purposes, set up a new scene for Mythic. So I'll talk about that in a bit. But first of all, we're going to build the dungeon. So even though, like I said beforehand, dungeons within Cairn aren't necessarily him going into some cave or into some crypt. It covers a whole aspect, and the burnt out prison within the confines of Cairn is regarded as a dungeon. The whole process of making the dungeon or generating the dungeon is very similar to how you would actually generate the main map of the region, with some subtle differences. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read from Cairn. So what you need to do in order to create the map is you roll 6 to 20 d6 dice on the dungeon map, ignoring any dice that fall off the page. These are the dungeon rooms. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 10 dice here, which I am going to plop on the table, plop on the page. Right, so I think some of these are a little bit too close together, so I'm just going to spread them out a wee bit. Otherwise, everything will be central. I'm going to, just leave them there, bring them in a bit, because they're effectively not quite rolled off the page. Now, ordinarily, if a GM was running this, those numbers would mean something. Those numbers indicate the room type of this particular dungeon. So you have on the die drop table you have 4 specific categories. So a 1, there'll be a monster in that room. 2 to 3, it will be classed as lore. 4 is a special room, and 5, 6, they're traps. Now, obviously, I'm playing this solo. I don't want to know what's in these rooms. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to use the dice as the room locators, but I'm ignoring the numbers. So when he moves into these rooms, I will then roll the die, see what comes up, and we can go from there. Obviously, there are relevant tables as well within the Cairn book, which again, once we get to those particular rooms, we can roll on those tables. There are other factors involved in building a dungeon, but because we know this is just a straightforward prison, I'm not going to go into dungeon factions and all that kind of stuff, because it's just a wiped out prison and we know there's a zombie in here. So that's it. So I just need to mark out the rooms. And I can take these off. Cool. Right. So it says select the room closest to the page border, which is going to be this chap here. This is the entrance to the dungeon. So start with the entrance, number each room on the dungeon map. Again, I'm not numbering them because I'm siloing it. If you were GMing, you would number it so you would know what it refers to in terms of the room type. If a room feels too far from the rest, roll another die and follow the previous process to add a new room. Then we go to drawing paths. Starting with the entrance, create 1 to 4 paths between each room. See figure 2. I can see figure 2. You can't see figure 2. But trust me, there is a figure 2 here. Create loops, branching hallways, dead ends, and shortcuts between rooms. Some paths are conditional, represented by a crossed line. Some paths are hidden, represented by a dashed line. Create at least 2 intersections, cross lines with no rooms in between. So, and then you would stock the rooms. But again, I'm not going to stock the rooms because that means I will know what's in there before I get there. But we'll get to that bit when we start. So this is going to be my entrance. So this is meant to represent part of a prison. You can imagine, potential cells and other bits and pieces in between. But, I'm not going to, as nice as it sounds, I'm not going to draw out a complete map of a prison. I think 10 rooms is more than enough for Jerrod to get his teeth into. Right, so now I need to draw my pathways. So we're going to go, that is an obvious pathway. Pathway. Probably get one here, and that's an intersection. Let's go there, there, and I'm going to say that's a hidden room or a secret room. And there will be you down here, and then it'll be maybe there's a secret passageway there. Yeah, it's possible we can maybe look at this as being a courtyard where we took out the zombie. So let's just say that's a courtyard. Where the previous inhabitants would have been taking their daily strolls. What are we going to do? We're going to go there. Yeah, that's alright, I suppose. I can't see. Or maybe we should do another. So that's tucked out of the way for whatever reason. So that is our dungeon generator. Fairly straightforward, very simple. Like I said, it's pretty much the same system as when you're actually drawing your starting map, your region map. The difference being is that instead of drawing the lines connecting the rooms, you'll be drawing kind of like longer lines separating regions, etc. and filling bits in from that. But yeah, so that is how you build a dungeon. Right. Next up, we need to update Jerrod's scene list. So with Mythic, you are generating scenes as you play, and Jerrod's first scene was effectively, him. He needs to make his way to the Brotherhood of the Zephyr, but he's now been waylaid. So we're going to say that particular scene is either on hold, or we can come back to that, but we will be starting a new scene. So I will need to get out his sheet. Right, on the screen in front of you is Jerrod's adventure journal titled Ravenclaw's Request. Now, on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the scene summary. So the scene that we just played out was scene number 1, which was originally Jerrod has just been recruited by Ravenclaw and been told that there is a temple that he should pay a visit to in order to get some answers. Jerrod plans to get underway. He did that. He left Glenwood, got caught out in a pretty crappy snowstorm, and decided to take shelter in an old burnt-out prison, which is where he encountered the zombie, which he dispatched relatively quickly and with ease. But due to the weather, he obviously decided to take shelter in the prison for the night, and he was going to continue his journey the following morning. So that was pretty safe, really. But that was also end of scene. That then gives us scene number 2, which is where we currently are. So the scene summary that I've set out for this was that Jerrod has taken shelter in an old burnout prison. Whilst there, he discovers a zombie which he eradicates. Jerrod decides it would be best to investigate the prison as the zombie was too close to Glenwood before he continues on to the Brotherhood of the Zephyr Temple. That is where he currently is, and on the right hand side you will see the current chaos factor. Now, I mentioned chaos factor in a previous episode, so for those of you who are unfamiliar with Mythic, the chaos factor changes based on the scene that you just played out, and within that it means it will change the odds that you will get when rolling on the fate chart. So, for example, for every new game where you're using Mythic, you always start at a chaos factor of 5. So, for example, on a 50-50 roll, if you roll 50 or less, then you have a positive yes answer. If you roll 51 or more, you tend to have a negative no answer. Now, because Jerrod's first scene was fairly uncomplicated. He had a minor scrap with a zombie, but he dispatched it relatively quickly. But beyond that, there was no real issues. So what I've done for scene number 2, I've dropped his chaos factor down by 1 to 4. Now, what that means now is, unlike before with a chaos factor of 5, where your success on a 50-50 is a 50 or less, if you roll a 50-50 now, in order to get success, you need to get 35 or less, or failure will be 36 or more. And that's how the chaos factor works. If we find at the end of this scene everything is pure and utter chaos, and we just narrowly get out of this alive, when I do my end of scene summary, I could then potentially bump that chaos factor back up to 5. But conversely, if this scene still plays out pretty sweet in Jerrod's favour, then that chaos factor will then drop down even further. The chaos factor or the fate chart only ranges between 1 and 9. You can't go below 1, and you can't go any further than 9. So right now there's room to manoeuvre. But as we are into a new scene, we then also have to roll for the modified scene setup, which I mentioned this in a previous episode. So I'm going to reiterate the point, because again, for those of you who don't know Mythic, it might be worth just reminding you what this is all about, and hopefully the more we get in, I won't need to keep on repeating myself. And for those who do know Mythic, yeah, I'm sorry. You're just listening to me rambling on. But anyway, so for every new scene, you have to roll for an altered scene, an interrupt scene, or the scene will play out as you would like. So if you roll an odd value number, which is 13579, then the scene setup is modified into an altered scene. If you rolled an even number, 2, 4, 6, and 8, then it's an interrupt scene. So in this case, my current chaos factor is 4. So the only way I'm going to get a change of scene is if I roll below 4. Anything above 4, the scene stays the same. So I've got a D10 here. I'm going to do a quick roll to see whether the scene stays the same or whether I need to alter it in some way. So I rolled an 8, in which case there's no alteration of the scene. Jerrod is going to pack up his stuff and start sniffing around the prison to see what else is there and to see if this is becoming a nest of zombie life. We shall soon see. Okay, rather annoyingly, I had the entire story recorded. For this particular scene anyway, I don't mean the whole story. And as I was saving it, the entire file got corrupted. So I had 35 minutes of actual play, all rolls, and the file got corrupted. You have just got to love technology, don't you? Anyway, so rather than go back and replay the entire scene as fresh, because I thought what actually transpired was worth saving, I'm going to kind of narrate what actually happened and including the roles that I got. So here it is, not quite an abridged version, but yeah, the alternative. So as we know, Jerrod woke up in the prison. He took himself away, found himself a little hidey hole near the entrance. Imagine the entrance of the prison being archway with a couple of towers either side. So he's found himself in a room there, which he's able to close and set himself up, set fire, has some food, tried to fall asleep before deciding that, he does actually need to check out this prison for any further signs of undead hostility. So he wakes up, gathers his things, and he goes down. As he goes down, we need to work out what this particular room is. So originally, I rolled a 5. Now on the dungeon die drop table, a 5 indicates a trap. So in this room, or in this area of the prison, I rolled for impales. Now that tells me that it makes sense. Number one, he is at the entrance of the prison. So for me, that says there is a portcullis there. The portcullis is still up. He also rolled for wills or wits just to check to see if he could find a mechanism there for the portcullis, which he does. So he knows that when he leaves, he could potentially close the building off behind him, or at least the front entrance anyway, because remember, this whole dungeon, this whole prison is a ruin. So there will be other ways in there, but, from the outside, you see a portcullis down, it made people. He then decided that there are 2 towers that flank the courtyard directly in front of him. His option was that he decided to take the left-hand tower. So he carefully wanders on out, looking all around him. The subtle breath of the wind blowing in his ear. The snow stops overnight, so around him is pure crystal clear snow. He walks up to the tower and pushes on the door. The door, surprisingly, opens quite nicely. But before he enters in, he quietens down. He listens. Does he hear anything? This is where I rolled on the Mythic chart. I rolled a 50-50. Did he hear anything? No. So he rolled above a 50. He quietly walked in, checked around. There is nothing there. Again, we're now into a new area of the prison. So I rolled on the room type on the dungeon die drop table, and again I rolled another 5, which is another trap. So this time the trap that was rolled was what was it called? It was cutting. I can't find it now. Oh, cuts. There we go. That's what was rolled. This got me thinking, well, what could it be? What cuts? So somewhere along the line, it's a blade of some description. So I went a wee bit Edgar Allan Poe on this particular section, and I said that Jerrod, he was looking around quietly, but he was looking for tracks. He was looking for traces or signs. And what he found was a pressure plate. So with his bow, he pressed down on the pressure plate and he heard a creak from above. And as he looked up, he saw a giant swinging axe fall down. Because he saw it coming, he was able to dodge out the way. No real damage there, but, good to know. There was there. There is nothing else in this room. There's no sign of any creatures, any undead. From that part, he exited through a right-hand door, where he decided he was going to make his way to the other tower on the right-hand side of the courtyard. As he was walking across, again, wind was blowing gently in his ear. He was always looking over his shoulder, looking around, listening, always listening for signs of anything. But as he's making his way across the pathway to the other tower, he looked, and in the snow, he could see tracks. Now, thinking these could be zombie tracks, he had a quick look. These were not humanoid in any way. He had no idea. But what he did notice is that these tracks led off into a room or a tower on the further side of the courtyard. They went in. He doesn't know. It could be an animal, but the tracks were not human. So he knows that something is there. Because I said he's seen pure, pristine white snow apart from these tracks. So his tracks are gone. The snow overnight had covered over his tracks, so these tracks are fresh. So he will need to go and find out what this is. It could be innocent, or it might not. Anyway, he continues moving across. He walks up to the other tower on the right-hand side of the courtyard from the entrance. Again, he puts his ear to the door. He's listening. Can he hear anything from inside? No, he can't. He gives the door a push. The door's not moving. He gives it an almighty push. The door's not moving. He gives it one last push, and the door eventually swings open. Worried about the noise he's made, he gets inside quickly and closes the door behind him. Again, from his previous experience of the last 2 rooms, he does a check. He looks. And he hears something. He puts his foot on another pressure plate, one which he doesn't see. Out of the wall, a bolt fires across towards him. I did a dex check on this one. He fortunately passed his dex, so he was able to dodge out of the way of the bolt. Now the bolt had been in there because this prison burned down a long time ago. So much so that the people of Glenwood, they rebuilt a prison to the south, which you would have seen on the map in the previous episode. He walks up to the wall, being very careful, looking at the floor around him as he's going, marking off areas of loose stone on the floor that he believes could be further trigger points for maybe more hazards within that room. As he walks up to the wall, which fired the bolt towards him, he could actually see and make out little marks in the wall, more holes, telling him there's more behind this wall. So he has to be careful. Beyond that, there's nothing else in this room. Whatever was in here beforehand may have been taken before, or people knew about the traps, so they knew not to go in this room. He sees a doorway to the northeast, northwest, should I say. He exits that doorway, and in front of him is a passage. Now, there's no ceiling here really, there's no real roof. Again, this is a ruin, so there's sufficient light for him to be able to walk across. Again though, he's being very quiet, very stealthy. This passageway will be the wall for the courtyard outside, but in front of him he sees another door. He crawls, he creeps, being very careful not to make any noise as he goes. But as he's wandering along, he can hear the sounds of crashing coming from the door in front. He quietly approaches the door, puts his ear to it, and all he can hear is banging, constant banging. Something is hitting, something is enraged by the sounds of it. The noise is coming from the left, then it's come from the right. Whatever it is, doesn't want to be in there. To be honest, whatever it is, Jerrod really doesn't want to encounter it, but he knows he needs to clear out what is in this prison. So he gets his crossbow ready, and he slowly pushes the door open. The door seems to actually move quite freely in this particular one, so he goes in quietly, and directly in front of him on the far side of the wall, about 15 feet away from him, is another zombie. He thinks, great, I've got the benefit of surprise here. I can take this guy out. So he aims carefully, and he fires. As the bolt approaches the zombie moves suddenly, nicking him in the shoulder. The zombie takes at 1 point of damage, so that reduces that to 1 hit point. As a zombie, he has a strength of 12 as well. Jerrod doesn't have time to reload. His surprise attack is enraged the zombie, if he wasn't already enraged enough. Obviously having been trapped in this room for whoever knows how long. So the zombie jumps with razor sharp fingernails, which does d6 damage. It swipes and claws at Jerrod. Jerrod takes the full brunt of the zombie's attack. So Jerrod started with 4 hit points, or hit protection, 4 HP. That was gone. First attack. Jerrod pulls out his sword in defence and lunges at the zombie. Again, the zombie moves. All Jerrod was able to do was graze its torso, thus reducing the zombie down to 0 HP, but he still has 12 strength. So from now on, any damage now gets taken off his strength. Jerrod has to roll for a dexterity save because the zombie's previous attack reduced his HP down to 0, and he had to take points off his strength. So Jerrod's strength was originally 14, and because he took the full brunt of the zombie's attack of 6, he was down to 12, which meant he had to roll a save of 12 or under. Otherwise, it would have been critical damage, and that would have knocked him out. Jerrod survived the dexterity roll and then swung at the zombie. This time the zombie came back, having taken that nick off the sword. The zombie hit Jerrod again, nearly full force. Jerrod took a further 5 points of damage, bringing his strength down to 4. Jerrod was thinking, I can't win. I need to get out of here. I need to get out. I need to lock this thing back in this room. So Jerrod turns to see where the door is and starts to make his way out, trying to run as fast as he possibly can. At this point, in order to retreat, you need to make another dexterity save based on your dexterity score. Now, Jerrod's dexterity score is 13. So I rolled a d20, but I rolled a nat 20. So Jerrod couldn't even escape. The zombie was on him again. The zombie swung. Jerrod was down. He rolled a dex save. This time he failed. Now, ordinarily, in game rules, Jerrod will be dead. But I'm playing solo. So what I decided to do was see whether or not the zombie saw him as a threat now that he was lying on the floor in his own blood.
So I rolled a 50-50 on the fate chart, meaning that if the zombie saw Jerrod as a threat, anything under 35, Jerrod would have been zombie fodder. Anything over 35, zombie was just, I don't know, in zombie terms, happy to get out of the room. So I rolled the dice, and probably the only bit of luck I've had in this fight, I rolled above a 35. So the zombie, he looks at me, didn't see me as a threat, may have thought I was dead. You know, I've got blood pooling out of every orifice around my face going, his long scratchy nails. Yeah, he made his way out. Jerrod, we'll have to wait and see what happened to him. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Usual social media things. If you liked what I'm doing, click like, subscribe, and in the meantime, I will see you next time on Jerrod's Jaunt, where hopefully Jerrod will survive, or maybe I'll leave the options up to you. I'll probably put another poll at the end of this video, or attach a poll to it, so you can give me your opinions as to what you think should happen next. In the meantime, ta-ta!